G'day everyone, welcome back to Scripture with Simon, the channel where we open up the Bible to show you what's going on. A little bit of a different studio setup this week because I'm on the road, but here we go. We've been looking at the book of Revelation, and we've seen John get exported up into the air, into heaven, and he gets the curtains peeled back to reveal what's really going on behind the scenes. And he learns that there's this cosmic battle that is dictating what goes on the earth. There's a battle between Michael and his angels, and a battle between this deadly ancient sea serpent of chaos who is cast out. Now this dragon is cast out to the earth, and this dragon is trying to do mischief on the earth now because he's been cast out from heaven, and he persecutes the church, who John depicts as a woman with the sun and the moon over her head and a crown of 7 stars. And the whole takeaway we talked about in the last episode is that it's actually a sign that they're winning. Persecution is not a sign that they're losing. In fact, the followers of the Lamb overcome by giving up their lives so much as to not shrink from death. They fight against the inhabitants of the earth, who have the mark of the beast on their foreheads and on their hands. They honor the beast with their word, deed, their allegiance, what they believe, everything. In every way, they are totally committed to this agent of evil and chaos. So today we're going to meet again the 144,000. We saw them in another passage earlier on. So we'll see them again standing on Mount Zion and see if anything looks a little bit familiar. Then I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000, who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the roar of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpers playing on harps, and they were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except for the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie was found, for they are blameless. So the 144,000, the followers of the Lamb, stand on Mount Zion, which is the Temple Mount. It's where the temple is built. It's the holy place where heaven and earth meet, God's dwelling place. And that's where these people stand, side by side with the Lamb. So they don't follow after the beast, they follow after the Lamb. And you'll notice they have their father's name written on their foreheads and on their hands. So while the followers of the beast have his mark on their foreheads and their hands, the 144,000 have the mark of God. They are sealed with his seal. And we spoke about the function of seals throughout this book. We saw 7 seals open up, which revealed 7 reasons or 7 precipitations of why people are suffering violence on the earth. Now these people are sealed with 7 seals. It's not just this scroll of Revelation. So that seal means that they are worthy. It means they belong in the heavenly realms. I spoke about this Merkava literature in which the descenders who would try and travel into these heavenly realms, just as John has, would have to learn these seals and passwords to progress from one level to the next. If they didn't know the right seal or password, they would be slain by these angels who are hostile to them.
Now these 144,000 have their Father's name sealed, so they are safe. These scary angels will not slay them because they have authority, they belong in these heavenly realms. They are friends, not foes. Again, we see these ideas of music, harps, thunders, lightning, all this great heavenly scene which plays into this idea of that altered state where people are hearing and seeing these different things. Again, like the seals, no one can learn these songs except for the 144,000. They're in an elite club, in fact an elite army who must do battle with the forces of evil. I mentioned earlier on when we looked at the letters to the churches that John is very strict. And certain Jewish sects were quite strict. There was the Essenes who would go out and live in the caves and to separate themselves from the rest of society because they believed that they would be corrupted otherwise. And they would practice abstinence and things like that within their community. Well, John seems to have a similar idea for what his religion looks like. These 144,000 have not defiled themselves with women, which sounds kind of misogynistic, but what he's saying is, to John, extreme and total abstinence is what is called for this heavenly battle. There's a theme in early literature, in the book of 1 Samuel, I believe it is. David's on the run from King Saul, and he goes to the temple, and he goes in and he asks for sustenance. Have you got anyone to feed us? And the priest there says, look, we've only got the showbread, and that's not lawful for anyone but the priest to eat. But he sees that these are dire circumstances. He says to David, as long as you have kept yourselves from women, then you can eat this thing. And he says, yes, we have. We've been on the battlefield. And you'll find that as a rule of battle. People are not to defile themselves with women when they're on the battlefield. The idea, well, not just on the battlefield, but when they're going into battle, there's this idea that the woman would corrupt you, and that would impact the result of the war. So you didn't want to defile yourself with women. You needed to be celibate so that you could be a soldier. You could be 100% focused on the battle at hand. And that's exactly what John is trying to get across to his readers. They need to be 100% focused at the battle that's going on in their world. They cannot be distracted by earthly, carnal pleasures or anything like that. They need to be 100% devoted to this spiritual calling and this spiritual battle which they must participate. All right, let's read on now from verse 6.
Then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water. Another angel, a second, followed, saying, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worship the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger. He will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, these worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the mark of its name. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds do follow them.
So John sees another angel who has an everlasting gospel. Now, we've got this idea about the gospel being sharing the good news about Jesus, and we think how to get to heaven, but that's not at all what's going on here. The everlasting gospel, in its original sense, is actually a declaration of victory. The gospel, the good news that this angel is proclaiming, is that God has triumphed over his enemies. Babylon has fallen. Now, of course, Babylon is set 587 BC, Babylon falls. So it's fallen long before the time when John is writing in maybe 90 AD, which is a long time gone. Babylon's long gone. Babylon's fallen a long time ago, but there's a coded message here. Babylon, in this case, represents the Roman Empire. Throughout the scriptures, and more so in Israel's history, the Babylonian exile is the defining period of Israel's history. It really plays the massive role in the script, and most of the scriptures gets written in response to that time, in response to the return from exile, and this whole searching of identity. Who are we as a people? So for John now to say that Babylon has fallen, he's talking about Rome, their new oppressor. Now this great city, this great oppressor, Babylon, is depicted as a woman who seduces the inhabitants of the earth. Of course, if we think about it from the perspective of desire leading to sin, leading to oppression, leading to violence, then we see that that's where this seduction starts, at this level of the desire. But notice, she seduces the people. She lures them into sexual immorality. Of course, the 144,000 are not lured. They are undefiled. They are virgins. They have kept themselves from this type of immorality. And that's what it takes to be part of the Lamb's winning army. One must resist the temptation, the allure of Babylon, the temptation to join this great empire, to fall in line and to reap all the benefits that go along with doing so. One must be willing to turn their back on that so that you can stay focused and keep fighting this war. We're also assured that those who follow the beast will eventually receive their final punishment. They're not going to get away with it. Even though it might seem like it for now, it might seem like the empire of Babylon or Rome is just destroying everyone and they're getting away with it. Who's going to pull them into line? They're so powerful. They're so scary. John assures his readers that Babylon will fall. Babylon is already fallen because the dragon has been cast out of heaven. The heavenly war has been won, therefore the earthly war has been won. And this persecution God's people are suffering is in fact a sign that the dragon has been cast out of heaven. It's a sign of victory in the end. And those who receive the mark of the beast on their forehead and their hand will have no rest, no comfort, no safety. They will be suffering forever. And there's this fire and brimstone imagery which we see so often in pictures of hell and the afterlife. We see it here in the book of Revelation. Now, whether or not this is hell as we think about it, let me know in the comments below. We'll talk more about this as we go throughout the series. But for now, thanks for joining me. If you've made it this far, give me a like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.